Welcome to the Anton Stetner podcast. Today, we're talking about the impossible answer, which is how do we time the Seattle real estate market? Anton, I'm excited because you always told me you can't, but I guess you've got some special answers today on that.
Well, we got special answers because the Mariners made it into the wild card. So, the M's are doing good. They're making progress.
Yes.
Your natural, consumer, everyone's saying the Seattle real estate market, it's falling apart. It's on the brink of collapse. Redfin is warning about all this bad stuff. Your friends are telling you to wait. But what if they're totally missing the point? What if we can show you, and we are going to show you in this video, how to time the market properly in order for you to be able to get an amazing deal on real estate? And what's happening right now is Seattle real estate the prices are stable-ish. Inventory is rising, and there's a window. So there's a window before demand starts to kick in again on the other side in 2026. And so what I want to do, I'm Anton Stetner. I've been selling real estate here in the Seattle Metro for over 20 years, thousands of transactions. We own brokerages. We do land development, new construction. We do all kinds of investing. And we put together these videos for you so that you can time the market together. As we go through this, if you want to learn more about wealth and real estate, subscribe. Also, if you have a specific question about a city or a zip code, drop that city or zip code in the comments. I will break down that segment of the market and talk about the opportunities that we see there. And we're in a paradox, right? So this paradox is because prices are fundamentally stable. We went from this on freaking fire seller's market, where there's articles in the Seattle Times about in Bellevue, someone's given away hundreds of thousands of dollars in non-refundable earnest monies. They're giving away Tesla cars as non-refundable earnest money. So we went from this feeding frenzy to the market slowing down and becoming more, and we're just going to call it buyer friendly. See, the media wants to portray it as a buyer's market. We're actually just more buyer friendly here in the Metro. There are places in the United States that are definitely buyer's market. What I want you to get to, though, Benji, I want our listeners and our subscribers to understand is that this is a temporary state of we're in a little equilibrium. We're in a pocket right now, but that's headed for change. And this is that once in a decade opportunity. This is like it was basically back at the end of the Great Financial Crisis in 2013, 14, 15, as the market was transitioning. That's what we're going through again right here, because real estate is in a transaction-based recession, both here in the Seattle Metro and nationally. And as we work through this transaction-based recession and as rates come down, it's going to get busier. And so we're going to show you how to take advantage of that. Number one, the inventory thing or the inventory item that the media keeps bringing up is an illusion. So you've been reading news. Mm-hmm. You're back on X.
Yes. Yeah. Sadly.
It's taken your time away. What are you seeing in regards to the media for inventory rising across the United States or locally? Are they saying it positively or negatively?
Yeah, and so inventory being how many houses are on the market.
Yep.
I think it started probably 6 months ago, maybe even a year ago, where they started noticing sales slowing down.
Yep.
So it meant that buyers, I think, were just priced out because the prices are so high across the board, except for those pockets, right? Like a Miami or, Arizona. But here in the Seattle area, record high prices, people can't afford it. And what you're seeing is houses aren't selling as fast.
Correct.
But when I say as fast, it's still faster than the slowest times I've experienced in my lifetime.
Yes.
And naturally, the amount of houses you have an option to buy have gone up, and
Yep.
that's what's being reported. But what's crazy is as inventory grows, prices are supposed to come down, but you're not seeing that, including rental prices.
Yeah.
My neighbors, when I talk to them and they tell me how much they pay for rent, I can't believe it when we're in a slowing market, rising inventory. So I think it's important to define what rising inventory is compared to other rising inventory eras.
Really, really well said, brother. So this inventory illusion is this idea that inventory is rising, which means there's more sellers, which means prices should crash. That's what we think through logically. And what happens is we have recency bias. When we look back at the great financial crisis, we assume because in the GFC that happened, this is going to happen again. But let's give it perspective. During the great financial crisis here in the Seattle metro, at one point we hit 14 plus months worth of inventory, and we're below 3 right now. Okay, so all we did was shift out of the white hot sellers market into a slightly cooler seller's market. So inventory is up, depending on where you're looking at, between 35 to 47%. So the number is crazy because it was so low and so red hot. That jump in inventory sounds scary, number one. Number two, a spike in inventory doesn't mean there is a bubble. It just means more is happening, and you nailed it on the head. It's the affordability problem. Our homes are really freaking expensive, and that is because of interest rates. So as interest rates rose, demand came down because it became less affordable. But our market is still appreciating, even if it's just a little bit.
And what just happened this last week?
And the Federal Reserve just lowered rates.
Now, rates were already starting to come down a little bit.
Yes.
Because the market usually is ahead of the Fed.
Yes.
But if the Fed also follows that market, then that means that we're likely to see lower rates. And that's what's interesting, because as house prices are supposed to come down because inventory is going up. Well, if rates go lower, guess what happens? Buyers come into the market again.
Bingo. They don't come in, they come rushing in. Mm-hmm. So there is a massive amount of data. You can look at this through Altos Research, through Housing Wire, Johnsburn Real Estate Consulting, Redfin Data Center. You can see that below 6.5, as it starts to get to about 6.4 and below, which is where we are at today, that demand starts to pick up. And as you hit 6, demand really picks up. Why? Because we're missing about 6 million units in the United States. In the Seattle metro, we're about 3.5 to 4 years behind on new construction. And you and I both know how hard it is to get building permits today. You've also got Redfin, though, coming out trying to scare us. And they just released this article this week. Summer 2025 was the strongest buyer's market with records dating back over a decade. Bum, 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 bum. And there are 35% more sellers than buyers. And they show this graph and they say the sky is falling. Listeners, subscribers, people who love to comment, who owns Redfin today?
Oh, Zillow?
Rocket Mortgage.
Rocket Mortgage. Sorry, I forgot.
Rocket bought out Redfin. So when Rocket bought out Redfin, what are they doing now? They're using Redfin as their marketing arm because Redfin was losing money. So they're running these articles to get more clicks, to get more views, to get more leads, so they can do more mortgages.
It's like I'd say deception is, not that they're purely deceiving because it's still accurate, is 35% of what number, right?
Yes.
So 35% of what? It's kind of like when Judy comes home, says, honey, you won't believe how much I saved. I saved 50%. I was like,
how much did you spend?
Yeah, how much did you spend to get there, right? And that's the same thing, because what you should probably look at, I think the percentage is important, but you should also look at the amount of units, right? Because if this graph was based off of units, it'd probably be way more skewed, especially if you went back. Interesting that they only go back to 2014. What about all the way to 2008? Right?
Yeah. So in my business class in college, when I went into, and I think it was like Stats 101. He goes, "Welcome to statistics, where we're going to talk about lies, damn lies, and statistics." In other words, you can slice the data however you want in order to portray what what the story, the narrative. What I want the listeners to do is always go a couple levels deep. So buyers are getting pickier though, because inventory is rising. Buyers got more choices. Why aren't prices dropping? And this is a fundamental idea that I want people to understand, and it's the price stickiness here in the Seattle Metro. And I want to talk about where the prices are at. And if you need me to go over some numbers, drop in your zip code or your city, and we'll do a special video on that in the comments. But the median price in King County year to date is up 2.6% at $995K. And Seattle overall is up 6.5% year to date. In other words, the Seattle Metro and Bellevue are out appreciating the majority of King County, because King County also includes the outlining areas. The average price in King County last month, year to date, $1.266 million, up 1.2%. Here's the part I want our listeners to get, because now I'm starting to show you how to make the money. This is how we time the market. The sales price to list price ratio is 99.5. When it is above about 98.5, there are potential bidding wars. As it gets below 100, this means people are getting money off the price. And this number trends down during the winter. Okay?
And it's going to probably stay strong as interest rates go down.
Generally speaking, yes, but we're getting to one of the punchlines. Yeah. Seasonality is your gift, because what happens is even as rates come down, it takes the consumer 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months to go, rates got lower, and you're headed into the seasonality where the list to sales price ratio naturally dips in the winter with high inventory, so you can go negotiate more. It's go time. It's deal season. I've been throwing this up on my stories, well, until my Facebook and my Instagram got hacked last week. But I've been throwing this up on the stories, telling people exact examples of how we're using this in the market today to get good deals. Snohomish County, median price 1.3% year to date, $790K. Average price $897,000, up 3.2. Sales price to list price ratio 99%. Here's what I want you to get. What's inflation right now?
Oh, isn't it like 3%?
It's like 2.5 to 3%, depending on CPI or core. Well, if inflation is 3, and I'm telling you King County appreciated 2.6, and I'm telling you Snohomish County appreciated 1.3, I'm telling you
It's stable.
that prices aren't even keeping up with inflation right now. So yes, prices are rising, but they're not rising as fast as inflation. But what I'm also telling you is this is changing in 2026. We can see it in the data. Dude, this is 2012 and 13 all over again. For those of you that don't know, I've been a data nerd inside of this stuff since 2003.
I can verify that.
And so I've seen this data over and over again. In 2007, I had a development project that I was a minority partner in with a builder developer. I was some cash in the project, and I was also the listing broker and the acquisition broker. And I could see it in the data in 2007. And I went to my partner and I said to him, we are going to lose $246,000 in the next 12 months if we don't get out of this now in 2007. He got mad because, when you tell someone they're going to lose $250,000, when they're thinking they're going to make 3 times that on the development, he goes, no, the data's wrong. I said, I look at it all the time. The data's right. He calms down. 3 days later, he goes, what do we do? I said, I got a wild idea. I said, we're going to go to the bank and we're going to ask them to issue every construction loan now. We're going to show them the data. We're going to show them how if we build out of this quicker and get ahead of this, we won't get destroyed. Little did I know how bad it was going to get in 2008 and 2009. Okay, but you could already see it in the data in 07. And you could see it in the rising BKs. You could see it in the rising divorces. You could see it in credit delinquencies. It's less than 6 figures. Right at 6 figures was lost on that. Let's just call it $100,000. When we thought we were projected to lose 250, 100 was survivable. $250,000 wouldn't have been survivable for that particular builder at that time. And so you ask yourself, why?
Yeah.
Why? Why have prices not collapsed here in Seattle? Amazing job growth, amazing tech sector, amazing natural resources, the artificial pinch of the land because, we got the salt water on one side, the Cascade Mountains on the other, the artificial supply of land due to the Growth Management Act, and then seller psychology. And the seller psychology plays a huge part of what's happening.
All right, so going more deeper into that, what are some of the economic reasons why prices don't crash here in Seattle? Because I feel like we've been kind of saying, not necessarily that there's going to be a crash, but there should be a kind of a price correction, and it hasn't happened. And I feel like I know some of the reasons, but Seattle is just such a strong market. Why is that?
One of the main reasons we're such a strong market is because we're such a large economic powerhouse. Tech, Boeing, all of our universities, deep water port, all of our natural resources. It's just amazing. Also, because of our tax structure, we don't have an income tax, we only have a sales tax. It promotes wealth growth and then respending inside of the local area. But kind of some of the technical terms of why there's this combination of prices tending not to drop quickly in real estate. This applies to the Seattle Metro and to the whole United States. It's called price stickiness. And the definition of price stickiness is this refers to the resistance of prices to change despite changes in supply and demand. Because in real estate, a seller is often reluctant to lower their price, even if the demand falls. The seller doesn't care. A lot of times they'll just sit there because the seller also has massive equity today. This is what people don't get. They go, oh, it's going to be like the great financial crisis. Nobody had equity in the great financial crisis. And also we had all of that debt reset. We had 40% of the debt reset as an arm. That's flipped on its head. Over 80% of the mortgages are all fixed debt right now. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then, of course, most of the people have 30 to 40% equity. So the seller goes, I'll take it off the market. I'm going to rent it. I'll just hold out for better conditions. So that dampens down what's happening because of that massive equity. Price inelasticity. You can't quickly build a bunch more real estate, and you can't quickly foreclose on a bunch of real estate. The foreclosure level in the state of Washington right now is like 0.3, okay? That is 10x less than what it was during the great financial crisis. So we don't have a bunch of foreclosures coming to save us. P.S. I still work for financial institutions. I still do bank-owned properties. I still have 50 accounts at these things. I have two bank-owned properties. In the height of the great financial crisis, I had 144 on the market, and I had 180 in the pipeline. That's the stark contrast in difference. And we were getting hundreds of price opinion requests per day. Part of that inelasticity is there's always demand for housing. Why? Why?
Oh, because there's more people.
Yes.
The population grows. Like you said, there's a lot of jobs in the area. It's stable.
Simpler.
Go simpler.
They have to have a place to live.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, we haven't been building enough houses.
Bingo.
You know what's kind of crazy
so
about
for most of these people, their mortgages are cheaper than all the rents around here.
Yeah.
And because the rents are so high, if they were to sell their home and like change it for a higher mortgage or go rent, their payment would go up.
You know, they say that inflation is almost directly correlated to the money supply if you simplified that part of economics. And in real estate, it could be as simple as how many houses you're building and are going onto the market.
Yes.
And if you compare that to the Great Recession, well, guess what? We had so many developments. It was kind of nuts. That was the fastest our community was ever growing. And you barely see developments now.
Yeah.
Barely. And, you know, they like pop up in the smallest little lots because they're just trying to squeeze out every little building.
Bingo.
But there's not very many. So if there's not enough people building and people aren't selling, inventory's low, well, even if interest rates go down, it's like, what are they going to buy?
Which is going to do what to prices?
Make it go up.
Boom, 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 up. So number 3 is loss aversion. This is just a behavioral thing. People hate to lose, and it's always this fear of loss. So they create an anchor price in their mind, and if they don't get that price, they just don't sell their property. That's why you've seen cancellations increase at such a high level. At the same time, though, you've seen price reductions increase at a high level. Two reasons. One, people were putting their properties on the market for wish pricing. So in other words, it was just plain overpriced. Two, in every market, there are some motivated sellers that have to reduce their price. That's what we're talking about. This is the timing of the market. And we already mentioned the last one, which is the mortgage lock-in effect. That's restricting the inventory because it's really hard for a seller to go trade in their 3% mortgage and go get a 6 or a 7. So just kind of a quick summary. Real estate prices don't crash fast because they're sticky and sellers hate losing money. It's pretty simple. So instead of dropping the price, they'll just pull the listing or go all waited out or all rent it. And then you add the inelastic supply, like you and I were just talking about. In other words, we can't build homes or demolish homes and build new ones in its place or get a development going, plus the mortgage lock-in effect. And boom, what happens is you have the gigantic recipe for unbelievably stubborn prices, even in a cooling market. So it's not just economics, it's just massive psychology that we have in effect here. If you're finding stuff like this valuable, consider sharing this with a friend that needs to hear this because they want to just sit on the sidelines. And that hesitation, it could cost them right now. And we're going to go through why that's going to cost them. So, got to rub the hands together, okay? Why? It's deal season. Oh my goodness, it's been deal season. And this is what we're talking about for the timing of the market. This is the fall frenzy and negotiations are back. So days on market have risen. List to sales price ratios are below 100. Bidding wars have vanished and seller concessions are rising. Now I got to caveat what I just said. That's the majority of the market. If you're looking at a freaking waterfront home on Lake Washington, it's not going to apply. If you're looking in Bellevue at this beautiful home and there's one of them, not going to apply. If you're, you know what I mean? So location, 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 and the perfect right home. Now we're still getting bidding wars on those ones. But if it's just normal vanilla ice cream and there's 3 or 4 you can choose from, great. Now we can play ball. And we're not having to waive inspections. We're getting timelines. And so this is where smart money is starting to play right now. I'm going to go through a couple examples. These are our examples of deals we are doing right now or our listings. We have a listing that was on the market and we got an offer for $100,000 below the list price. And one of my brokers came up to me that's on our team and he shows me the offer. And I looked at him and I go, I will buy it for that price. And he goes, we already got an offer. Because he knows I'm dead serious. It's a deal. And I'm just a deal junkie. And I go, well, what is it? He goes, all cash, 14-day closing, 5-day inspection, waive everything. So these people just came in hard and heavy against this seller, throwing it on the table. And literally there was a 24-hour deadline. And the seller goes, and I didn't think they would. You know what? And Lance was the broker working on this on our team. Lance, counter back and see if you can get me a little more. And if you just get me a little more, I'll sign it. My jaw hits the floor. I was like, she said that? He goes, yeah, she totally did. That buyer got $88,000 off the list price, closes next week. Because they were willing to ask. Their agent had the guts to ask. One of the things about these inexperienced agents is they're not asking enough hard questions. They're not willing to negotiate. They're just ooming and awing about these things. We have a large daylight rambler. It has an accessory dwelling next to it. The accessory dwelling unit was built in the last 2 years. So basically this is a large home with an accessory dwelling over the garage. And that seller has already purchased another home. So that creates motivation. And because that seller has already purchased another home, their property went on the market slightly below where we recommended. But because the market's been a little bit slower and we've had a whole bunch of people through, the seller dropped the price. The seller dropped the price to where this beautiful home with a yard and everything is now about $40,000 less than what a comparable duplex, even though this will rent for more in the area. It's such a good deal. I picked up the phone. I called my mom. I go, Mom, I love you. I was like, hey, can we sell XYZ property and go buy that one for you instead? And she goes, no, I don't want to do that right now. So I'm starting to think it's a deal. We get an offer. And as we get the offer on it, they came in, offered $40,000 less than the already good price. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is insulting. The seller's insulted. I'm insulted for the seller. We counter back, say we'll give them 10 grand off. And then the buyer and the buyer's agent immediately, the buyer just goes cold fish, dies. And I go, hey, wait a second. When we're doing deals, we ask 4 times. 4 times is the rule. So I've had one conversation. I got to go back and ask again. So I pick up the phone. I call the lender. I say, hey, will you run the payment at the purchase price they offered and at the one we countered and run the differential in the payment? And this is for the buyer's lender. He goes, it's $154 a month and some pennies. I said, great. What if I get the seller to kick in an extra $5 grand right now and buy that interest rate down just a little bit? What would the payment difference be? And he goes, $14. I said, gotcha. Pick up the phone, call the buyer's agent, and we go, hey, listen to the assumptive close. I know how to make this deal work for you and your client. Call me back. Send him the same text message. Get him on the phone. We walk exactly through the scenario, how to do the scenario, the script and everything. Talks with the buyer again last night. Him and I follow up again. Talks with the lender. I said, I'll get in front of them. I'll show the comps to them. Okay, normally would I go to this level? Absolutely not. But it's deal season and I'm motivated and my seller's motivated and I like the lender and I like the buyer's agent. You know what I mean? I kind of know everyone that's right there. So this is a good example. Also, another good example. Hunting off-market properties. We're getting so much owner financing right now. It's awesome. So we have an off-market property under contract. We're going to get owner financing at 5.5%, non-owner occupied, 10% down. Amazing. That doesn't happen unless it's deal season. We do the inspection. Guess what? Problems. Okay. We knew the house was beat up. We knew we're buying it below market. So there was a certain level of problems we were willing to accept. Foundation is sinking in the back of the house. Not sinking a little bit, sinking like 2.5 inches. Generally speaking, if your foundation sinks a lot, so think of it like a ring, there's been a leak somewhere and the foundation has started to squish down. So we go get bids. How much do you think the bids are to jack up a 1,700-foot Rambler, bust out a garage floor, rip a deck off, refill the garage floor, and jack up the whole back of the house?
Oh man, I want to say, I'm just pulling this out of my
Yeah,
butt.
no.
50 grand.
Bingo. 48.
Damn, I'm good.
48.
You know, the reason I know is because
Yeah.
I had to do that once on one of my flips back in the day. And it was about 25 grand in 2008.
Yeah, so you just more than double it. We have a second bid coming in today. The second bid, I think, is literally going to come in at like 46. And I talked to another guy and he said 60. And I was like, don't bother putting the bid together. So as the negotiation, I pick up the phone, I call the seller because this is one we're buying. And I call the seller and I say, I want you to go get your own bids. Will you extend our feasibility study for a week or 2 weeks so you can go get your own bids? I still want to buy your property. I want to figure this out with you, but we have to build a bridge. We have to figure out some common ground here. And they liked that idea. The reason I'm bringing this up is only in deal season can we talk about all these different types of negotiations. And there's a little bit of fear in the market. There's a little bit of fear because of the economy, a little bit of fear because of inflation. So the average is going to wait till everything's perfect next spring. And I'm telling you, it's go time right now. And the reason it's go time is we've got the mortgage rate time bomb. You said this, the Fed started cutting rates. P.S. everyone, as the Fed talks about rates, the bond market is exactly like the stock market. It is a forward-looking indicator. What that means is we buy the rumor and we sell the news in the bond market, just like in the stock market. So as we were talking about the Fed rate cutting, the rate actually got cheaper before and bounced slightly up after the Fed actually cut. Why? Because we always assume the rumor's worse. So we're calling our investors, we're calling our buyers last week before the Fed meeting, and we're literally going, lock your rates, get your deals in now because it's going to pop up. Multiple people said, I don't believe you. And I said, I love you. The data says you're wrong. How much do you want to bet? I'm willing to, like our money here in the YouTube Secrets book, I'm willing to make that bet. And, they laughed. I said, because it did it last time too. History likes to repeat itself. So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Mortgage Bankers Association, the Federal Reserve themselves, they're all predicting that by the end of 2026 that we're in the mid to low sixes, 25, and that in the beginning of 26 that we are low sixes to mid to high fives by mid 2026. That's a massive change. So the buyers are waiting for the sub 6%, and then the frenzy will start.
You know what else is happening? The market got so slow. It's just so slow that people that bought at the height of interest rates now are thinking about, one, refinancing at these lower rates, which is kind of crazy because this lower rate is like high for me, right? At 3%. But also, this means that they might think about buying something else at that lower rate too. And because it's the opposite of the lock-in rate.
And it's already happening.
Yeah.
So mortgage refinances are up something like 24%. Mortgage applications are up double digits.
Yep.
I talked to all of our large friends that represent some of the biggest lenders in the state, Tony, Jason, and Cody, and all of them said the same thing. Hey, we're getting a bunch of refis right now from the people who were at 7. They're refining into low 6s. And so, drop in the comments below what you think is the threshold for our market. Where do you think they're going to come in? And what I want to switch to next is this idea of the first-time homebuyer window of opportunity. When you're a first-time homebuyer, what prevents most first-time homebuyers?
The mortgage payment?
The mortgage payment.
Or the down payment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the mortgage payment, it's the down payment, and then the emotion is the massive fear, right? So when they have pressure on themselves to waive all these contingencies, is their fear going up or going down?
Say that again.
So when the market was red hot in like 2020, 21, in the beginning of 2022, and they had to waive everything, is that increasing their fear or decreasing their fear for the first-time home buyer or the average buyer?
I think it's increasing.
Massively increasing it. So I'm telling you from an emotional level, it's easier on the buyer right now because we can get some of these contingencies. We've got down payment assistance programs. I talked to a mortgage broker last week that can get you 0 down FHA, 0 down conventional. And FHA and VA numbers right now are already below 6%. So we just inked a VA with a minor buy down, 5.65. That's a great deal.
Yeah.
Great deal. And so if you've been renting for the last few years, it's time to start looking again. If you're an investor, it's time to start looking again because for investors, I think it's even better right now. First-time homebuyers, come on, let's help. But investors, we have a whole different playbook that we can be executing. And that playbook is ADUs, detached accessory dwelling units. Washington State allows 1 to 2 units in every backyard. Let's go find a property 5 to 10% below market, needs a little love. Let's find out where you could build 1 to 2 units in the backyard, and you are literally going to create anywhere between $100,000 to $300,000 in equity by forcing that value.
Are ADUs kind of a unique investment strategy for the Seattle area and the Pacific Northwest?
Yes, very much so, because most states don't allow them.
And we're starting to allow them.
Well, our state forced it from the top down. So with House Bill 1337, when they passed that, the Washington State Legislature said to every city and county, you have to allow this in a specific time frame.
Because they want to allow more density, more housing.
Because we are in a housing crisis. When your state legislature, who doesn't pay attention to anything, says you are in a housing crisis, you are behind on inventory. Also, things with higher days on market, massive opportunity. Rentals, where we can get good cash flow, good cap rates. Things with high occupancy, assuming rents are going to climb. And then why are rents going to climb? We've talked about this a whole bunch of times, but the giant stacks of apartments, those things take 3 years to do. And in the 3 years, What happened 3 years ago? What year is 3 years ago, Benji?
2022
2022. What did the Federal Reserve do to interest rates in 2022?
started going up.
They jacked them through the roof. And because they jacked them through the roof, our development applications for large multifamilies dropped off the face. It went down by 80%. So that means rents are going to have to go up because we're missing these. Last but not least, your final opportunity is seasonal and psychology. This is the end of the year slowdown. So when I get asked by my friends, my family, our investors, our first-time home buyers, when is the best time of the year to buy? The best time of the year is 1, near a holiday, and 2, at the end of the year, starting now, basically October, November, December, January, sometimes February. And you can see this right in the data. You see the list to sales price ratio come down because think about it logically. If you're a seller and your home is on the market around Thanksgiving, are you motivated? Yes or yes?
Yes.
You have to be motivated, otherwise you're taking it off the market, which means the buyers are getting the best deals then. And we're going to use human behavior, we're going to use psychology, and we're going to use data to your advantage during deal season. For our investors, bonus depreciation is back. We have to talk about using that to lower your tax burden so you can get money back on your taxes. And there's a certain amount that you can qualify for depending on your status. As real estate professionals, we get unlimited. We also got the Airbnb loophole. So if you wait till 2026, the competition is going to start to feel like it was 2021. Short recap. Inventory is up. Demand is muted. Prices are stable, but lower. They're climbing slowly. Now, of course, there is some super hot areas, but rates are falling. So this is your moment before everyone comes back in, and it's going to get a lot busier. The spring market is always busier. Why? It's beautiful. Here in the Seattle Metro, when it's gray and cloudy outside and rainy outside, we get the best deals. When the cherry blossoms come out, that is the start and the signal of the spring market starting. And as the spring market starts, expect prices to start rising. Our prices here in Seattle generally rise at the beginning of the year, and it's February to June is where all the appreciation happens, and the market slightly flattens or goes slightly down for the rest of the year. Don't forget to like, share, comment, ask questions about your market, drop your zip code or your city below if you want to review that one. And we will see you in the next episode. Thank you for watching.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So we've been doing this podcast now for a few years.
Yeah.
And this has kind of become a reoccurring theme. Like, hey, right now is the time to buy. And it's always in the fall.
Yeah.
Almost always.
It is. It's always is.
Or sometimes like before the spring, right? So my question for you is, I know that you might not have the exact numbers, but generally speaking for the Seattle market, 2025 is like at 900,000, whatever, right? 95. In 2024, was it lower?
Yes, of course.
And then in 2023, was it also lower?
Yeah.
And then in 2022. So your predictions actually were all true, which is like buy right now. Now we're talking for 4 years when we were supposed to have a crash.
Yes.
Isn't that kind of crazy to think about?
We
have it all documented.
There's no crash in the data. You can go, we have the receipts. They're all over YouTube. There's no crash in the data. And you can see on average during the winter, buyers get between 2 to 6% off the list price. Dude, 6% of $1 million is 60 grand. I mean, that's not pocket lint. That's a lot of money. Number 2, they can get terms and they don't have to like fight with everyone and there's less emotional pressure. Then what happens is in the spring market, you see all that appreciation and you see the list to sales price ratio always bump over 100. It literally goes 100, 100.4, 101, 102. I mean, it got crazy during 2020 and 2021. It went to like 113, But that's not normal, but it always pops up there in the spring. So I'm telling you, if your goal is to buy in the next 12 months, it's now versus later. And it's always going to be this story for a very simple reason. Are we a pro business, pro land development, pro new construction state? Yes or no?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think we really are, but we're going to have to become it.
We will never become it. We are becoming an anti-business state, but we are definitely anti-growth, because I've been doing land development stuff since 2003. The regulations, more. The red tape, more. The timelines, longer. The fees, longer. We just looked at something for one of our guys in Sultan. The hookup fees were almost $60,000. That's a Kirkland price. Okay? Wait a second. I got to pay $60,000 to get the piece of paper to build the house? That's a Kirkland number. Get out of here. So these numbers and the inability of our state to produce housing economically, affordably, is going to massively continue to hold down supply, number one, and force prices up, number two. Brother, it's why I sold all my out-of-state properties. We sold all the out-of-state properties. We brought all the money home because all of the appreciation and all the action is in our backyard for the foreseeable decade. I got handed a deal in downtown Seattle yesterday on a sticky note. Hey, go look at this deal. I literally look at the deal. It's like, that's a good deal. I don't even have time, and I don't want to fight with the city of Seattle. I was like, I'm going to go spend my money where it's easier to get a deal done. That is why prices will continue to go up. And we've been right for year after year after year after year. And it's just going to continue.